The chamber was enormous, built to hold representatives from 100 different worlds. Taman stood in the center, his bioluminescent markings flickering nervously across his pale skin. Around him, thousands of alien beings watched from their seats, their many eyes focused on him with cold judgment. He was young for a fleet commander, barely 30 cycles old. His people had chosen him because he was born after the war, after the terrible things his ancestors had done. They hoped it would matter. They hoped the galaxy would see him as proof that the Vrexian people had changed. They were wrong. The head judge, a massive creature with crystal formations growing from its body, spoke in a voice that echoed through the chamber. The Galactic Coalition has reached its final decision. The Vrexian species is hereby exiled from all Coalition space. You have 30 days to evacuate. Taman's three-fingered hands trembled. Please, he said, his voice breaking. My generation had nothing to do with the war. We were children. Most of us weren't even born yet. How can you punish us for crimes we didn't commit? A representative from the Kelthran species stood up. Their people had suffered the most from the Vrexian biological weapons. Your ancestors created a plague that killed 17 million of my people, they said quietly. Mothers, children, elders, they died screaming, their bodies turning against them. You ask us to forget? I'm not asking you to forget, Taman replied. I'm asking you to see that we are not them. We've spent decades trying to make amends. We've opened our records, shared our technology, helped rebuild worlds. What more can we do? You can leave, the Crystal Judge said. That is our final decision. In the observation section, a human woman named Hyejin watched with a frown. She was new to the Galactic Coalition, representing Earth's interests. Her planet had only recently made contact with the wider galaxy. She didn't have a vote in these matters, not yet. But she watched Taman's face as the verdict came down, and she saw something that troubled her. She saw despair. 30 days later, the Vrexian fleet departed. 47 colony ships carrying every surviving member of their species, 3 million souls with nowhere to go. Taman stood on the bridge of the lead ship, watching the Coalition stations fade behind them. His second-in-command, a woman named Jiwon, stood beside him. She was older, with silver streaks in her dark hair and medical training that made her invaluable. Where do we go? She asked softly. Away, Taman said. Just away. In the lower decks, an old Vrexian named Daisu gathered the children for their daily lesson. He was the fleet's historian, keeper of their memories. He believed that if his people forgot what they had done, they would be doomed to repeat it. Tell us about the war, a young girl named Mirai asked. She was only 7, born on one of the colony ships. She had never seen a planet's sky. Daisu's markings dimmed with sadness. Our people were desperate, he began. We were fighting the Kelthran over territory, over resources. We were losing. So our scientists created a weapon, a sickness that would only harm the Kelthran. But it was wrong, another child said. It was a lesson they had learned many times. Yes, Daisu agreed. It was wrong. The weapon worked too well. It spread too fast. It killed too many. By the time our leaders realized what they had done, millions were dead. The war ended, but the damage was permanent. Why do we have to pay for it? Mirai asked. We didn't make the weapon. Daisu looked at her with ancient eyes. Because we are Vrexian. Their blood runs in our veins. Their choices are part of our history. We cannot escape that. We can only prove that we are better than they were. The fleet traveled for months, moving through uncharted space. Their food synthesizers worked at maximum capacity, turning raw materials into barely edible paste. The life support systems hummed constantly, recycling the same air over and over. Children grew up in narrow corridors, never feeling wind or rain. Taman walked through the ships each day, trying to maintain morale. It was getting harder. People were tired. They were losing hope. Commander, a young engineer called out one day, we're detecting something. A message beacon from the Coalition. Taman's heart jumped. Had they changed their minds? He rushed to the bridge. Play it. The message was simple and cold. Warning to all Coalition members. The Vrexian fleet is approaching Sector 7. Do not provide aid or sanctuary. Do not engage in trade. By order of the Galactic Coalition. Jiwon closed her eyes. They're making sure no one will help us. They're afraid, Taman said bitterly. Afraid we'll find somewhere to rebuild. Afraid we'll become strong again. Can you blame them? Desu asked from the doorway. The old historian had come to the bridge. Our ancestors proved what we're capable of when we're desperate. The galaxy has a long memory. Taman turned to look at him. So what do we do? Just drift through space until our ships fall apart? Until we all die? No, Desu said firmly. We keep going. We keep trying. We prove through our actions that we deserve a second chance, even if it takes generations. But Taman could see the numbers. Their resources were finite. The ships were aging, breaking down. They had maybe a year, perhaps 2 if they were lucky. After that, the fleet would become a graveyard. That night, Taman couldn't sleep. He wandered down to the observation deck, where a large window looked out into space. A few other Vrexians were there staring at the stars. They nodded to him respectfully but said nothing. What was there to say? He thought about the human woman, Hyejin, who had watched their trial. He had seen her face in the crowd. While others looked at him with hatred or fear, she had looked at him with something else. Pity, maybe, or sympathy. Humans were new to the galaxy. They hadn't fought in the old wars. They didn't carry the ancient grudges that other species did. Maybe that meant something. Maybe that meant nothing, sir. A voice interrupted his thoughts. It was a young navigator. We've completed our scan of the next sector. There's a yellow star system, 3rd planet from the sun, nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, water-based life. It matches Vrexian needs. Taman felt a flicker of hope. Is it inhabited? Yes, sir. The database says it's called Earth. Recently made contact with the Coalition but hasn't joined yet. They're listed as a protected developing world. Earth, Taman repeated. He remembered now. That was Hyejin's homeworld. Set a course. We'll try asking for sanctuary there. Sir, they're probably already been warned about us. Every world has received the message. I know, Taman said. But we have to try. We're running out of options. We're running out of time. The navigator nodded and left to adjust their course. Taman stayed at the window, looking at the stars. Somewhere out there was a blue planet called Earth. A world that might save them, or might turn them away like all the others. He touched the window with his 3-fingered hand. His markings glowed softly in the darkness. Behind him, the ship hummed with life. 3 million people depending on him. 3 million people who had done nothing wrong except be born Vrexian. Please, he whispered to the stars. Please let someone show us mercy. The fleet turned toward Earth, toward their last hope. Behind them, the Coalition stations grew more distant. Ahead of them lay only uncertainty and the fading light of a yellow sun. The first world they approached was covered in factories. The Korthan species had built their civilization on industry and efficiency. Their planet was a maze of smokestacks and assembly lines visible even from orbit. Taman sent the standard greeting. This is the Vrexian fleet requesting permission to land a diplomatic shuttle. We seek sanctuary for our people. We are peaceful and willing to work. The response came quickly. Too quickly. Request denied. Korthan space is closed to your species. Leave immediately or we will open fire. Please, Taman said. We have children. We have sick and elderly. We just need a place to rest, to resupply. You should have thought about your children before your ancestors committed genocide. We will not risk contamination from your kind. Depart now. Jiwan stood beside Taman on the bridge, her face tight with frustration. Contamination? We're not carrying any diseases. They're using that as an excuse. They're afraid, Desu said from his usual spot in the corner. Fear makes people cruel. The fleet moved on. Their fuel reserves dropped another percentage point. Food supplies dwindled. In the medical bay, Jiwan treated more cases of malnutrition each day. The synthesizers couldn't create everything the body needed. People were slowly starving on full stomachs. The second world was different. The Thessian collective was a species of philosophers and priests. Their planet was beautiful, covered in temples and gardens. Taman hoped they might be more understanding. The Thessian high priest appeared on their communication screen. They were tall and graceful, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed with inner light. We have received your request, they said in a melodious voice. We have meditated on your situation. Thank you, Taman said, feeling hopeful. We're willing to live by any rules you set. We just need a chance. We understand your suffering, the high priest said, but we cannot grant sanctuary. Your people carry a soul debt that cannot be forgiven by the living. The 17 million Kelthran who died scream from the void. Until that debt is paid, you must wander. How do we pay it? Taman asked desperately. Tell us what to do and we'll do it. That is not for us to say. The universe will decide when your people have suffered enough. Until then, you must accept your fate. The screen went dark. Taman slammed his fist on the console. Suffering enough? How much suffering balances the scales? When is enough enough? Jiwan put a hand on his shoulder. We keep trying, but the trying was taking its toll. In the lower decks, Mirai asked her mother a question that had no good answer. Why does everyone hate us? Her mother, an engineer named Unji, knelt down to look her daughter in the eyes. They don't hate you, sweetness. They hate what our ancestors did. But I didn't do anything wrong. None of us did. I know, Unji said, pulling her daughter close. I know. That night, 3 more ships reported critical failures in their life support systems. Engineers worked around the clock to patch the problems, but they were running out of spare parts. The fleet was dying slowly, one system at a time. The third world was inhabited by the Planari, an insectoid species that lived in massive hive cities. Taman barely had hope left, but he had to try. He sent another message. This time, the Planari Queen herself responded. She appeared on screen, a creature of chitin and compound eyes. We know who you are, she said, her voice clicking and buzzing. We want nothing to do with warmongers. Find somewhere else to die. We're not warmongers, Taman said. We're refugees. We're people who just want to live. Your species created a weapon of mass destruction and used it against civilians. That is the definition of warmonger. We have no interest in your excuses or your suffering. Leave our space. The screen went black again. Taman sat in his command chair, feeling hollow. 3 worlds. 3 rejections. How many more could they survive? In the medical bay, Jiwan faced her own crisis. A child had collapsed from malnutrition. His name was Juan, only 5 years old. His body was shutting down, unable to process the synthesized food anymore. He needed real nutrients, real food grown in real soil. Please, his mother begged Jiwan, please save him. Jiwan did everything she could. She used their dwindling medical supplies, tried every treatment she knew. But without proper nutrition, without the vitamins and minerals that only came from natural food, the boy was fading. She went to find Taman. He was in his quarters, staring at star charts. We're losing people, she said without preamble. Little Juan might not make it through the night. 3 others are in similar condition, and it's going to get worse. Taman looked at her with exhausted eyes. I know. We need to land somewhere, anywhere. We need real food, real resources. These ships are becoming coffins. I know, he said again. But where? Every world turns us away. The coalition made sure of that. Jiwan sat down heavily. How long do we have? 2 months, Taman said quietly. Maybe 3 if we ration even more strictly. But then what? We'll be too weak to even send distress signals. They sat in silence, 2 people carrying the weight of 3 million lives. Outside the window, stars drifted past, beautiful and indifferent. Desu found them there an hour later. The old historian looked even more tired than usual. I've been teaching the children about Earth, he said. They asked me about other species, other worlds. I told them about the humans. What about them? Taman asked. They're young, Desu said. Just made contact with the galaxy a few years ago. They haven't lived through the old wars. They don't carry our history. They've also been warned about us, Jiwan pointed out. The coalition made sure everyone knows what we did. Yes, Desu agreed. But humans are strange. I've been reading their history. They've done terrible things to each other. Wars, genocides, atrocities. But they also have this concept they call redemption. They believe people can change. Taman felt a tiny spark of something that might have been hope. You think they might help us? I think they might listen, Desu said carefully. That's more than anyone else has done. That night, the fleet changed course. The navigation computers plotted a route to a small yellow star in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. The 3rd planet from that sun was called Earth. In the children's section, Mirai lay in her bunk, unable to sleep. She could hear other children crying softly in the darkness. Everyone was hungry. Everyone was scared. She thought about the stories Desu told, about Earth. He said it had oceans so big you couldn't see the other side. He said it had forests with trees that grew for hundreds of years. He said it had animals that flew through the air without ships. It sounded like a fairy tale. But Mirai wanted to believe it was real. 3 weeks later, Earth appeared on their sensors, a blue and green marble hanging in space. Taman stood on the bridge, looking at it with a mixture of hope and fear. "It's beautiful," Jiwon whispered beside him. "Sir," the communications officer said, "we're being hailed by Earth's defense network. They're asking us to identify ourselves and state our intentions." This was it, the moment that would decide everything. Taman straightened his uniform and nodded. "Open a channel. Tell them we are the Vrexian fleet. Tell them we're requesting asylum. And tell them we're desperate." The officer sent the message. Then they waited. Seconds felt like hours. Minutes felt like days. Finally, a response came through. "Vrexian fleet, this is Earth Defense Command. Your message is being forwarded to our First Contact Council. Maintain your current position and await further instructions. Do not approach the planet." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. For the first time in months, Taman felt something like hope. "They're considering it," he said softly. "By all the stars, they're actually considering it." Jiwon grabbed his hand. In the lower decks, people began to whisper. The news spread through the fleet like wildfire. Earth hadn't turned them away. Not yet. Little Juan, still weak in the medical bay, opened his eyes. "Are we there?" he asked his mother. "Are we at the planet?" "Soon," she told him, tears running down her face. "Soon, my love." The Vrexian fleet waited in orbit around Earth, holding their breath, hoping that humanity would show them the mercy the galaxy had denied. The Defense Command Center in Geneva was chaos. Alarms blared as 47 unknown ships appeared on Earth sensors. Fighter jets scrambled. Missile batteries powered up. Officers shouted orders across communication channels. Junho sat at his station, watching the fleet's approach. He was a military advisor, responsible for protecting Earth from external threats. And right now, 47 alien vessels counted as a threat. "They're sending a distress signal," a technician reported. "Life support failing on multiple ships. They're showing us their interior scans." "Sir, there are children on those vessels." Junho's jaw tightened. "It could be a trick." "Show me the scans." The screens lit up with thermal imaging. Thousands of heat signatures. Small ones, medium ones, large ones. Family groups huddled together. Medical bays filled with patients. The signs were unmistakable. These weren't warships. They were refugee vessels. "Sir, we're receiving a formal communication request," the communication officer said. "It's from the lead ship. They're asking for permission to send a diplomatic shuttle." "Denied," Junho said immediately. "We don't know what they want or what they're capable of." "Actually," a woman's voice said from the doorway, "we do know what they want." Junho turned to see Hyejin walking into the command center. She was Earth's first contact coordinator, the person responsible for managing humanity's relationship with alien species. She had been at the Galactic Coalition meeting months ago. "They want sanctuary," Hyejin continued. "They're the Vrexian species. They were exiled from Coalition space 6 months ago." "Exiled for what?" Junho demanded. "For crimes their ancestors committed 80 years ago. They created a biological weapon that killed millions." The room went silent. Junho felt his blood run cold. "And you want to let them land here? Are you insane?" "I want to hear what they have to say," Hyejin replied calmly. "That's different. They're killers. Their species committed genocide." "Their ancestors did," Hyejin corrected. "The people on those ships are descendants. Most of them weren't even alive when it happened." Junho stood up, facing her. "We have protocols for this. Earth cannot harbor war criminals or terrorists." "They're not war criminals," Hyejin said. "They're refugees." "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because from where I'm standing, they're a threat to every person on this planet." Hyejin moved closer, lowering her voice so only Junho could hear. "Our species dropped atomic bombs on our own cities. We created gas chambers. We engineered famines. Are we forever defined by those moments? Or can people change?" Junho wanted to argue, but something in her words made him pause. She was right about humanity's history. They had done terrible things. But they had also learned, grown, become better. "I'm calling an emergency session of the United Contact Council," Hyejin said. "They'll make the final decision." "But those ships are dying, Junho. If we do nothing, 3 million people will suffocate in space. Can you live with that?" 2 hours later, Taman and Jiwon stood in a small shuttle preparing to descend to Earth. The council had agreed to hear their case. It was more than Taman had hoped for. "Are you ready?" Jiwon asked. Taman looked at his reflection in the shuttle window. His markings were dim from stress and lack of proper nutrition. He looked tired. He looked desperate. Good, he thought. Let them see what we've become. I'm ready, he said. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere. Taman watched through the window as clouds parted to reveal a world of incredible beauty. Blue oceans, green continents, white ice caps. It was everything Desu had described and more. They landed at a secure facility in Geneva. Armed soldiers surrounded the shuttle as they emerged. Taman raised his hands, showing he was unarmed. The soldiers relaxed slightly but kept their weapons ready. Hyejin was waiting for them. Taman recognized her immediately from the trial. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with us," he said in accented but clear English. "Thank you for coming," Hyejin replied. "Please follow me. The council is waiting." They were led through a series of corridors to a large conference room. 20 humans sat around a table, representing different nations and regions of Earth. All of them looked at Taman and Jiwon with expressions ranging from curiosity to suspicion. Junho was there too, his arms crossed, his face hard. "Please sit," the council chairman said, gesturing to 2 chairs. "State your names and your purpose." Taman sat down, feeling the weight of 3 million lives on his shoulders. "My name is Taman. I am the commander of the Vrexian fleet. This is Jiwon, our chief medical officer. We come to request asylum on Earth." "Why Earth?" a council member asked. "Why not go to one of the many other worlds in the galaxy?" "We tried," Taman said simply. "We've approached 17 different worlds in the past 6 months. All of them turned us away. Some threatened to shoot us down if we didn't leave immediately. Earth is our last hope." "Tell us about your people," another council member said. "Tell us about the biological weapon." This was the moment Taman had been dreading. But Desu had been clear. "Tell the truth, all of it. 80 years ago, the Vrexian species was at war with the Kelthran over territorial disputes. We were losing. Our scientists developed a pathogen designed to target Kelthran biology. They released it during a final desperate battle." He paused, forcing himself to continue. "The weapon worked better than anyone expected. It spread faster than predicted. It mutated. Within 6 months, 17 million Kelthran were dead. Mothers, children, civilians who had nothing to do with the war. When our leaders realized what they had done, they surrendered immediately. We've spent the last 80 years trying to atone." "How do you atone for genocide?" Junho asked harshly. "You can't," Taman said, meeting his eyes. "Not fully, but you try. We opened our scientific archives to the galaxy. We helped rebuild Kelthran cities. We created memorials to remember the dead. We teach our children about what happened so they never repeat it. We've done everything except cease to exist, which is apparently what the galaxy wants." "The Galactic Coalition exiled you," the chairman said. "Why?" "Because we're a reminder of what they fear most," Taman said. "That desperation can turn anyone into a monster. That any species, given the right circumstances, could do what we did. It's easier to exile us than to face that truth." Jiwon spoke up for the first time. "May I show you something?" She pulled out a data pad and projected images into the air. "These are from our fleet. This is our medical bay. These children are suffering from malnutrition. Their bodies are shutting down because we can't create proper nutrients in our synthesizers." The images were devastating. Children with hollow eyes, adults too weak to stand. Elderly Vrexians lying in beds, their markings barely glowing. "This boy is named Juan," Jiwon continued. "He's 5 years old. He's dying. Not because of anything he did. Not because of anything his parents did. He's dying because of decisions made 8 decades before he was born. Is that justice?" Several council members looked uncomfortable. One woman wiped tears from her eyes. "How many of you on those ships were alive during the war?" Hyejin asked. "None," Taman said. "The youngest survivor is 93 years old. Everyone else was born after. We are paying for our ancestors' sins. And if we grant you asylum?" Junho challenged. "How do we know you won't create another weapon? How do we know we can trust you?" Taman stood up slowly. "You don't. You have to take a chance on us the same way we're taking a chance on you. We could be walking into another rejection. You could imprison us or worse. But we're here because we have no other choice. And you have to decide if you're the kind of species that punishes children for their grandparents' crimes." The room fell silent. The council members looked at each other, having entire conversations with their eyes. Finally, the chairman spoke. "We need to discuss this privately. Please wait outside." Taman and Jiwon were led to a waiting room. Armed guards stood at the door. Through the window, Taman could see Earth's sky. It was blue, so beautifully blue. Do you think they'll say yes? Jiwan asked. I don't know, Taman admitted. But at least they're thinking about it. That's more than anyone else did. Hours passed. Taman tried not to think about the fleet above, about the dwindling supplies, about little Juan fighting for his life. Finally, the door opened. Hijin stood there, her face unreadable. The council is ready to deliver their decision. They walked back into the conference room. Every council member was there, looking serious. Taman's heart pounded in his chest. The chairman stood. The United Contact Council has voted on your request. It was not an easy decision. We have consulted with medical experts, security advisors, and historians. We have examined your records and your history. Taman held his breath. We have decided, the chairman continued, to offer you probationary asylum. You will be given land in an unpopulated region where you can establish a settlement. You will be monitored. You will follow Earth's laws. You will undergo regular inspections. This probationary period will last for 2 years. At the end of that time, we will decide whether to grant full asylum status. Taman felt his legs give out. He sat down hard, his whole body shaking. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. Jiwan was crying openly. When can we land? We have sick people who need immediate help. Immediately, Hijin said, smiling. We've already prepared medical teams. Bring down your critical cases first. Taman looked up at the council. 6 months had passed since the Vrexian fleet landed. The settlement, which they had named New Haven, was built on the vast plains of Mongolia. It was far from major cities but close enough to Earth's infrastructure for support. Taman stood at the edge of the settlement, watching the morning sun rise over the grasslands. He still couldn't believe this was real. His people had homes now. Not ships, but actual buildings with foundations dug into Earth's soil. They had fields where real food grew. They had clean water that came from Earth's rivers. They had a future. Commander, a voice called. Taman turned to see a young Vrexian running toward him. The human teacher is here for the morning class. Taman smiled. I'm not a commander anymore. Just call me Taman. But old habits died hard. His people still looked to him for leadership, even though he had officially retired from the role. Now he served as the civilian administrator of New Haven, handling the daily challenges of building a new society. The school was one of their first constructions. It was a large building where Vrexian and human children learned together. The human teacher, a man named Sunwoo, had volunteered for the position. He was patient and kind, and the children loved him. Taman walked to the school and looked through the window. Inside, Mirai sat next to a human girl, both of them working on a mathematics problem. They were giggling about something, communicating in the mixed language they had developed together. It's amazing, isn't it? Sunwoo said, appearing beside Taman. 6 months ago, these kids had never met each other. Now they're best friends. Your species has a gift for acceptance, Taman said. Sunwoo laughed. You should have seen Earth 50 years ago. We weren't always so good at accepting differences. We had to learn, sometimes the hard way. Inside the classroom, Mirai was teaching her human friends about Vrexian bioluminescence. Her markings flickered in patterns, spelling out words. The human children tried to copy her, using flashlights to create their own patterns. That's the word for friend, Mirai explained. See how it spirals? That means it's a happy word. A human boy named Taejin tried it with his flashlight. Like this? Almost. The spiral needs to be tighter. Try again. They practiced together, laughing when they got it wrong, celebrating when they got it right. This was the future, Taman thought. This was what his people had been searching for. Not just survival, but connection. In another part of the settlement, Jiwan was working in the medical center. It was a joint facility, staffed by both Vrexian and human medical professionals. They had learned so much from each other. Vrexian technology was more advanced in some areas, while humans had treatments and techniques the Vrexians had never considered. A human woman brought her son in, worried about a cough. Jiwan examined the boy with her Vrexian scanner, then smiled. It's just a cold. He'll be fine in a few days, but I can give you something to help with the symptoms. The woman relaxed. Thank you, Dr. Jiwan. I was so worried. 6 months ago, this woman would have been terrified to let a Vrexian touch her child. Now it was normal. Trust had grown slowly but steadily. Little Juan, who had been so sick on the fleet, ran through the medical center with a group of friends. He was healthy now, his body finally getting the nutrients it needed. He was learning to speak Korean and teaching the human kids how to speak Rexian. He wanted to be a doctor like Jiwon when he grew up. At the center of New Haven, Daisu was building something important. It was a memorial, a place to remember the Kelthran who had died because of the Rexian biological weapon. The structure was made of earthstone and Rexian crystal, a combination of both people's materials. A group of human visitors stood before the memorial, reading the names inscribed on its surface. 17 million names. It would take years to carve them all, but Daisu had insisted. Every victim deserved to be remembered. Why do you do this? One visitor asked. She was elderly, with numbers tattooed on her arm. Daisu recognized them. They were from Earth's own genocides from a place called Auschwitz. Because forgetting is dangerous, Daisu said. If we forget what we did, we might do it again. The woman nodded slowly. My people learned the same lesson. We say never forget in our language. It sounds like you say the same thing in yours. Yes, Daisu said. Never forget. Never again. Other human survivors of genocides began visiting the memorial. People whose families had suffered in Armenia, in Rwanda, in Cambodia. They came to see how the Rexians remembered their victims. They shared their own stories of loss and survival. It helps, one man said, to know we're not alone in carrying this kind of history. Daisu invited them to speak at the memorial. Human and Rexian children sat together, listening to stories of atrocity and survival. It was difficult. Many children cried, but it was necessary. This is why we remember, Sunwoo told his students after one such visit, not to punish or shame, but to learn, so we can be better. In the agricultural domes, Vrexian and human scientists worked side by side. The Vrexians had advanced farming technology that could grow food faster and more efficiently. The humans had knowledge of Earth's crops and soil. Together, they were creating something new. Hybrid farming techniques that combined the best of both approaches. The food they grew was distributed to both communities. No one went hungry anymore. Junho visited the settlement regularly. His role had changed from suspicious guard to genuine inspector. But somewhere along the way, he had become more than that. He had become a friend. He found Jiwon in the medical center reviewing patient files. How are things? He asked. Good, Jiwon said, smiling. We treated 47 patients today. 23 human, 24 Vrexian. No major issues. Junho nodded. I need to include that in my report to the council. Over the past months, Junho had watched the Vrexians carefully. He had been looking for any sign of deception, any hint that they were dangerous. Instead, he had found people trying desperately to be good, to prove they deserved their second chance. Can I ask you something? Junho said. Of course. Do you ever resent us? For making you prove yourselves? For treating you like criminals? Jiwon was quiet for a moment. Sometimes, she admitted. It's hard to be judged for things we didn't do. But I understand why you had to be careful. Trust isn't given freely. It has to be earned. You've earned it, Junho said. I'm going to recommend that the council end the probationary period early. You've proven yourselves, Jiwon's eyes widened. Really? Really. You've integrated better than I ever expected. You've contributed to our communities. You've shown nothing but good faith. It's time for Earth to do the same. That evening there was a celebration in New Haven. It was a joint festival combining Vrexian and human traditions. Music from both cultures played. Food from both worlds was served. Children ran through the streets, their laughter universal. Taemin found himself sitting with Hyejin watching the festivities. Your species saved us, he said. How do we ever repay that? You already are, Hyejin said. Look around you. Vrexian medical technology is helping humans with diseases we couldn't cure before. Your agricultural methods are feeding people in poor regions. Your children are teaching our children new ways of thinking. That's payment enough. A Vrexian band started playing, their instruments creating harmonies that resonated with their bioluminescent markings. Human dancers tried to follow along, stumbling at first, then finding the rhythm. Soon, Vrexians and humans were dancing together, creating something neither culture had seen before. Mirai danced with her human friends, all of them laughing. She caught Taemin's eye and waved. He waved back, feeling his heart swell with emotion. This was home. Not because of the buildings or the land, but because of the people, both peoples learning to live together. Daisu joined them, his old bones tired but his spirit bright. I never thought I'd see this day, he said. Our people at peace accepted building something new. Your teachings made this possible, Taemin said. If we had forgotten our history, if we had denied our crimes, Earth never would have given us a chance. Honesty is the foundation of trust, Desu agreed. And trust is the foundation of everything else. As the night grew darker, the Vrexians' markings glowed brighter, creating natural light for the celebration. Humans brought out lanterns and strings of electric lights. Together they illuminated the settlement, a beacon of hope in the darkness. Word of New Haven's success was spreading. The Galactic Coalition had received reports. Other species were watching with interest, some with approval, some with skepticism. But all of them were watching. Humanity had done something the galaxy thought impossible. They had taken in the outcasts, the exiled, the condemned, and they had helped them become something better. As Taman looked out over the celebration, over the mixed crowd of humans and Vrexians, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. The despair, the rejection, the long months of wandering. It had all led to this moment, to this place, to these people who had opened their arms when everyone else had closed their doors. Earth had given the Vrexians more than asylum. They had given them hope, dignity, and a chance to prove that people could change, that the sins of the past didn't have to define the future. Tamin raised a cup in toast. Around him, both humans and Vrexians did the same. To new beginnings, he said. To new beginnings, everyone echoed, and on the plains of Mongolia. The United Nations Assembly Hall was filled to capacity. Representatives from every nation on Earth had gathered for this historic vote. In the gallery above, Vrexian observers sat nervously watching the proceedings. Taman stood at the podium, facing thousands of human faces. 2 years had passed since New Haven was established. 2 years of hard work, of proving themselves, of building trust. Now came the moment of truth. The Secretary General nodded to him. "The floor is yours." Taman took a deep breath. His markings flickered with nervous energy. "Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Taman, and I represent the Vrexian people who have made Earth our home." He paused, gathering his thoughts. 2 years ago we arrived here desperate and broken. We had been rejected by 17 worlds. Our ships were failing. Our people were dying. We had nothing left except hope that someone, somewhere, would give us a chance. Humanity gave us that chance. You could have turned us away like everyone else. You could have looked at our history and decided we were too dangerous, too contaminated by our past. Instead, you looked at us and saw people. Not monsters, not threats, just people who wanted to live. Murmurs of approval rippled through the assembly. Taman continued. The Galactic Coalition exiled us for the crimes of our ancestors. They said we carried a soul debt that could never be repaid. But Earth showed us something different. You showed us that people can grow beyond their worst moments, that the children are not responsible for their grandparents' sins. He looked up at the gallery where his people sat. In the past 2 years, we have worked hard to earn your trust. Our medical technology has helped cure diseases that plagued humanity for generations. Our agricultural methods have increased crop yields in regions suffering from famine. Our engineers have collaborated with human scientists on projects that benefit both our peoples. But more than that, we've learned from you. We've learned about second chances, about forgiveness, about building something new from the ashes of the past. A screen behind him lit up with images, Mireille and her human friends at school laughing together. Vrexian and human doctors working side by side, mixed communities celebrating festivals, the memorial to the Kelthran victims. This is what you've given us, not just land or resources, but community, family, home. Our children are growing up with your children. They're learning your languages, your customs, your values, and your children are learning ours. They're creating something neither of our species imagined, a future where our histories don't divide us. Taman's voice grew stronger. Today you vote on whether to grant us full citizenship status, whether to accept us not as probationary refugees, but as equal members of Earth's society. This decision will echo across the galaxy. Other species are watching. They want to see if humanity's compassion is real or just temporary. I cannot promise we will never make mistakes. No species is perfect. But I can promise this. We will spend every day working to be worthy of the trust you've placed in us. We will honor the victims of our past by building a better future. We will teach our children to never forget what we came from, and to always remember who gave us a second chance. He stepped back from the podium. Thank you for listening. Thank you for everything you've done. Whatever you decide today, Earth will always be the world that showed the galaxy what mercy looks like. The assembly was silent for a moment. Then one by one delegates began to applaud. The applause grew until the entire hall was standing, clapping. Taman felt tears running down his face. The vote began. Electronic displays showed the tally as each nation cast their vote. Yes, yes, yes. A few abstentions, but no rejections. The numbers climbed higher and higher. When the final count appeared, the Secretary General smiled. By a vote of 187 in favor, 6 abstaining, and 0 against, the United Nations grants full citizenship status to the Vrexian people. Welcome to Earth. In the gallery, the Vrexian observers erupted in celebration. On the floor, human delegates congratulated each other. Taman stood at the podium, overwhelmed by emotion. They had done it. They were home, but the day wasn't over. Even as Earth celebrated, 3 ships were approaching from deep space. They bore the insignia of the Galactic Coalition. An inspection team had arrived. Junho met the team at the landing site. He was no longer just a military advisor. He had become Earth's liaison to New Haven, and he took his role seriously. The Coalition inspectors were led by a Kelthran named Raycon. Their people had suffered the most from the Vrexian biological weapon. Junho understood this would be a difficult visit. Welcome to Earth, Junho said formally. We're ready for your inspection. Raycon looked at him with large, dark eyes. We are here to evaluate whether humanity has made a grave mistake in accepting the Vrexians. We will be thorough. We expected nothing less, Junho replied. Over the next week, the inspectors examined every aspect of New Haven. They reviewed medical records looking for signs of biological research. They interviewed residents, searching for evidence of deception. They analyzed the settlement security protocols. Jiwon led them through the medical center. We maintain complete transparency, she explained. All our research is shared with Earth's scientific community. We've developed new treatments for several human diseases, all of which have been published openly. And biological weapons? Raycon asked directly. We don't develop any weapons, Jiwon said firmly. It's written into our charter. Any Vrexian caught researching weapons of any kind faces immediate exile from the settlement. The inspectors visited the school where Sunwoo was teaching. Mirai, now 9 years old, was giving a presentation about Vrexian history to her mixed class. This is the memorial to the Kelthran victims, she said, showing images. My teacher Daesu says we must never forget what our ancestors did. He says remembering is how we make sure it never happens again. A human boy raised his hand. But why should you have to remember? You didn't do anything wrong. Because it's our history, Mirai answered. It's part of who we are. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. That's what makes us different from our ancestors. They forgot that other peoples matter too. We won't make that mistake. Raycon watched this exchange with unreadable eyes. The inspectors interviewed humans and Vrexians separately, looking for inconsistencies. They found none. Everyone told the same story of integration, cooperation, and mutual respect. On the 5th day, Daesu invited Rakan to visit the memorial. The old Vrexian led the Kelthran inspector through the structure, showing them the names carved in stone. 17 million names. This is Kalana, Daesu said, pointing to one name. She was a teacher. She died trying to protect her students during the outbreak. This is Velkon. He was a musician. This is Tressa. She was only 6 years old. Raycon's hands trembled. These are my people. My ancestors. Yes, Daesu said quietly. We researched every victim. We gathered their names, their stories. We teach our children about them. They were not just numbers. They were people with lives and dreams and families. Why? Raycon asked, their voice breaking. Why do you torture yourselves this way? It's not torture, Daesu replied. It's remembrance. It's our way of honoring the dead, of saying that their lives mattered, that their deaths mattered. If we forget them, their deaths mean nothing. If we remember them, perhaps their deaths can prevent future atrocities. Raycon stood before the memorial for a long time, reading names. Finally, they turned to Daesu. My great-grandmother's name is here, Kalani. I never met her. She died before my parents were born. Daesu searched through his records. Kalani, teacher, age 34. 2 children who survived. She was one of the first victims. He pulled out a small crystal. This is all the information we could find about her. Her work, her life. We give these to families who come looking. Would you like it? Raycon took the crystal with shaking hands. You kept records? You researched the victims? Of course, Desu said. They deserve to be remembered. All of them. The Kelthran inspector sat down heavily. I came here expecting to find monsters hiding behind smiles. I thought humans were fools for accepting you. But this, they gestured at the memorial. This is not what monsters do. We are not monsters, Desu agreed. But our ancestors became monsters. We carry that knowledge. It shapes everything we do. We choose differently because we know what happens when we don't. That evening, the inspection team gathered to make their report. Shunho and Hyejin sat in on the meeting as Earth's representatives. What are your findings? Hyejin asked. The chief inspector, a crystalline being, spoke first. We found no evidence of weapons development. No signs of deception. The Vrexians have integrated into human society in ways we did not think possible. The medical center is beyond reproach, another inspector added. Their research is transparent and beneficial. The education system teaches honest history, a third said. The children learn about both species' mistakes and successes. Raken spoke last. I visited the memorial to my people. The Vrexians have done something my own species has not. They remember every victim. They teach their children the names. They honor the dead. Their voice was thick with emotion. I came here hating them. I wanted to find reasons to condemn them. Instead, I found people trying to be better than their ancestors. I found genuine remorse and real change. The chief inspector nodded.